It used to be Thrifties, but it's okay.
Of course.
Yes,
Oh, that's the one where they make those really terrible ice cream with the little holes.
No. They're actually, it's really good.
Pump the brakes. Did you just say Thrifty's ice cream is bad?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Wow.
We know it's terrible,
No,
but
it's
it's all
not.
part of our childhood.
It's definitely not.
terrible.
They have
Un-American. Un-American.
They have the hands down best mitten chip ever because it's those little pieces that kind of melt when you're eating it versus like big old chips.
I don't like mint.
Man.
What?
If that's all they got going for it, like, well then.
I mean, it's everything.
That's like saying they have the best banana. I'd be like,
Their rainbow sherbet, that's bomb. That's really good. And I'm pretty sure the other ones are good because I remember them being good when I was a kid.
You can't mess up.
They have the best ice cream, and I can only name two flavors.
But it only takes
flavors.
two.
You can't mess up.
Two.
Yeah.
Does it?
It only takes two to
Baskin
tango.
Robbins got 31.
Yeah, and 29 of them are
Thrifty's is
horrible.
known as two flavors.
That's true.
Yeah, apparently.
That's true.
Rocky Road, I'm sure that's good.
Take me home to
They're
the
bomb. We've been getting
place.
thrift, and it's not super expensive. Like these tiny little pints that are like $40. When did that happen? When did a $10? Okay, $10 for a pint of ice cream. When did that happen? Like it's fancy. Like
Is that a lot?
yeah, but I mean, like, but when? When was that?
I don't know what the inflationary ice cream.
Not
chart
inflation. It's
looks
not even
like.
an inflation thing. It's just all of a sudden we decided, you know what? Ice cream is worth paying $10 for a pint. It wasn't even inflation. It was just we got
Everyone's trying
fancy
to
with
be an
like.
artisan.
What did we used to think it cost?
Well, right now you can get
$2.95.
You can get a Thrifty's little. Is it half gallon, whatever those like normal size containers are for like what $7?
Oh man.
Or you can spend $10 and get like a McConnell's pint or Haagen-Dazs.
Dude,
or whatever.
as a kiddo, I remember going, I don't know what the brand was. I would walk in and we would get a gallon of Napoleon, you know, and it was like $8. And that was like spending for my family, but we would, and then we would crush it that night between the family of 6 that I was in. But it was just like, yes, this is dope.
Dude, and ice cream doesn't feel
Nowadays.
that way. It's like designer ice creams now.
Yes, I like the designer ice cream. My wife gets the. I'm an elitist turd.
No, so is my wife though. You're good.
Yeah,
Okay, let me
come on.
So
I went to college. I didn't remember anything in college, but I feel like saying I went to college allows me to do things like I cut my grass with tweezers. You know,
Well,
like
that's, you know,
ridiculous level things.
that
you
explains a
know?
lot because I'm a college dropout who likes Thrifty's ice cream apparently.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. I pay someone to cut my grass with tweezers.
See, no, this is what I love though.
I went to college.
That's what I love.
to
Like,
college,
there's an argument here. It's like, John, you are an idiot. I'm sorry, I went to college. Damn it.
Oh.
Good call.
Got me there.
I can't
I
say
did.
anything.
Got me there.
I can't say anything.
Pay to go to college. It's about as much as I'm willing to divulge as factual information. Anything else will be used against me in a court of law.
Yep.
Oh man.
Well, I think that this episode.
Please don't start the episode with that.
episode.
Wait, are we recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
We're season 3. Are we season 3?
I don't even know. I
This
feel
is
like
the one where we jump the shark, right?
I feel like-
Can I be the shark?
I would love to jump the shark.
That is
Let's
definitely
do
what's
it.
Yeah.
I want to jump it. I want to be the
We
Fonz.
already are. I'm on this podcast.
Yes.
I'm officially the shark.
Well, we started with Thrifties. I think that's a
shut the
great
hell up.
intro. But I think we need another intro because season 2, season 3, I don't know. I'm not keeping track. But
It's season 3.
John has been our guest, Mr. Delman, twice. But today he's not our guest. He's a co-host. So it's official. Monsters of Design has 3 co-hosts.
That really went on for a while, didn't it, Adrian?
I was having fun. I'm sorry.
great.
I felt the moment
Yeah,
and I
that's
went
great.
with it.
That's really nice, man. It's really nice. Yeah.
I'd be lying if it was the first time someone gave me an angelic singing as I entered a conversation.
Yeah.
But it is the first time in this past hour.
There we go. All right. Yeah. That's why you wake up every morning.
Yeah. Your family is just
So I'm an
your family's
official
just waiting
So
for
you have people that trim your grass, but you also pay for people to give you angelic wakings up in the morning.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
John,
Well,
today.
Adrian.
Who would do that
Adrian.
for free?
He went to college.
Oh yeah, you went to
went to-
college.
So
I
of
forgot
course
about
he
that.
has people.
I went to
with him.
Angelic College apparently,
Yes,
but I went to college.
And yes,
It
the
was
answer to your question is you are officially a
a
monster.
monster.
A monster.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Well, you've always been.
Well,
a
I guess
monster.
we're technically
Exactly.
We're the
You've
monster
always been a
slayers,
monster.
right?
Yeah.
We're the monster slayers, so it's kind of cool. Like, you're welcome.
I've been called the monster before, but never in this positive way.
Well,
which is really
what was the
nice.
first one? What was the first monster we all took down together? What was that?
Process.
So 3 S's.
Process monster.
Kind of
And then we
weird.
did
Snake Frankenstein thing. And then
Yep.
the next one
And
you
then
came
the AI
back.
monster, right?
Yep. It was the first part of our 3-part series, AI New Hope, which was followed by The Prompt Strikes Back, and then eventually Return of the Jed AI. And every time I talk about that around my wife, she laughs at me and says, "You're dumb," because I make cheesy dad jokes, and I'm not even a dad.
I like that.
But that's
though,
okay.
But you're not dumb. You're just dorky. You're a dork.
I am a dork.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the 3 of us are great together, because even though some of us went to college, some of us did not go to college, we are all dorks. And I think that's fair to say.
I spent
Would you
7
agree,
years
Mr.
in
Delman?
College.
Oh, for sure. And I actually, and I do dad jokes, but I am a dad, so
Yeah.
I'm
And
required by
pretty good at
law.
'em. You're pretty good
to-
at it.
to-
Yeah,
required,
there's a
like-
quota. There's a quota. I think there's a
There
monthly
is.
quota. How many is it up to now? What's the current?
Oh, at least
regulation?
8 a day.
8. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Who monitors that?
Working hard or you're hardly working. That one I just check off.
Yeah.
It's like
Get
I
it
just
out of the
have
way.
a
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
a macro every day. I
Is
have
that
to
is
say
that
it
the
a certain
first
time.
the first time someone asks how are you doing, and then that's sort of the default first response of the day?
Pretty much, or stuff like that. You can pick your nose, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your friend's nose.
That's a good one. That's another good one. Yep.
The dumbest one I have.
Doesn't come up as often as it would like.
Dumbest one I have is like, man, that was intense. It's like, well, no, Todd, that was actually in the facility, but I don't know where you were working. We weren't in a tent.
I
Any joke that uses the word facility, it's a good one.
yeah. I like the low key dad jokes. Like mine is just sounds Gouda. I say that all the time.
Sounds good. Yeah.
And now I just say it to my wife, and again, she points out how much of a dork I am.
I don't know how much of a
I like
joke
that
it
one.
is,
The
though.
low key dad jokes.
I like that. No, see, I like that because it's
Sounds
Gouda.
Gouda.
It's Gouda.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how much of a joke, but like
not
I don't
really a
say
joke, I guess,
I'm not
but-
being facetious. I'm being a sea fish.
That's good. That's another
That's
low
like,
key.
it's like
That's
I'm
low
just
key.
being a sea fish.
Yeah.
It's no
This
thing.
podcast's off to an
Low-key.
awesome start.
Shut
Dad
up.
jokes. Well, we talked about
I'd say
ice cream.
we tied our shoelaces together, but we're all wearing Velcro shoes. So shoelace too much for this crew.
Oh goodness gracious!
Well, we did.
You are wearing shoes, though. Congratulations. I try and go as long during the day not wearing shoes as possible.
Yes, I have slippers.
Because I went to college.
Are we slippers people when we're doing our remote work?
No,
Slippers?
I'm
Just no shoes?
I'm always in shoes.
See, it's cold.
Socks.
It's cold where I'm at, so I'm
Yeah,
like
at
the
least
slippers
socks,
guy.
but always shoes.
I have to do socks. I'm like at that age now where like you just kind of have to wear socks all the time. My feet are always
It's too cold in the house.
Yeah.
To not
Yeah.
wear.
Even
Unless
in
in
the
the
summer,
summer,
I'm
then I
concrete,
so
don't.
it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
I need socks, but shoes. Luckily, I don't live in the city, so I don't have to step on like human poo. So I can wear my shoes in the house.
That's
If I was in the city,
Yeah.
no.
I have a friend that lives here near Cambria in Cayucas, and he's dating another one of my friends in San Francisco, and
Look at this guy.
he hadn't been
Friends
up
all
there
over
in a
the
while.
place.
He goes up to, hang out with her
Big city
for the
friends.
first time like a couple years ago. And he literally just gets out of his truck barefoot, his dog off leash. And my friend's like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, that's so.
No idea. Just like, it's just a Cayucas.
Like in the
dude.
city?
Yeah, in the city. Like in the,
Oh, gross.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
No,
Oh, man. My
Noe
wife wouldn't let
Valley.
me back in the
Noe
house.
Valley. Yeah.
hose him down.
So there's a little bit of a
Wouldn't even be
difference.
enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to take Bart into the city from here. I worked in the city for like 3-4 years, and I'm deep in the city. Like Wayno was over by Mission District, I think. Over Mission.
Yeah,
Mission
yeah.
District, Mission. And then Huge was in Oakland, and then I would come into the city for Google, and there's no way I would ever be on Bart without shoes. Oh my God. And there'd definitely never be walking down any street in San Francisco without shoes.
No. Yeah, that's not a thing.
No, especially some of the way, like I get off at like Civic and it would be like, like a homeless grenade went off. It would be like fighting through just to get up to the surface level.
So, well, just to recap this intro that has been great. Cheap ice cream versus expensive ice cream. I think it was perfect. So we got the ice cream, we got the college, we got the shoes or no shoes in San Francisco. I think it's up to pretty good. We did a little bit of an intro to Jon, and then we just kind of went off on
We didn't
tangents.
talk about the Super
So the
Bowl.
reason why I think you are our third co-host is because we love tangents, and look at us.
Free
Already
association.
You couldn't find anyone else.
diving deep, and also we couldn't find anyone else.
Yeah.
Well, today we are going to talk about, speaking of ice cream brands, like that segue. It's not really, it's a pretty shitty segue, but that's okay.
That's a good segue.
Today our monster is...
You didn't land it yet. I don't know.
I'm about to land it. I'm just building the suspense. I think everyone listening to this right now is biting their nails.
Not all
Or
two of them.
finding the X button on the top right of their browser. The brand is our monster for today.
Hell yeah.
And we were talking earlier, like I kind of picture it like a Yosemite Sam, maybe like a big old cattle rancher with like a big branding iron, just rushing to slap that logo on something, make it bigger and brighter. And as we all know, I think it's table stakes. I think most designers can agree. We understand the brand is not just a visual ID, but I still think it gets lost. And even if a lot of designers can recognize that and acknowledge it, I think that overall in the industry, you still bump into that at times. And I think that's sort of the first thing we kind of were like, maybe we could talk about this, but we can go a little bit deeper into like maybe what the brand means when it comes to story or creating a character, not just a story for a brand to sort of resonate with, like personifying it, which I think is really interesting. So I'm curious, when did that click for you guys earlier on in your career when you're like, oh, a brand is not just a logo, it's so much more? Like, when did that happen for you guys?
When I was at Phelps Group in '99, I think I encountered it the first time. I was working on rolling. I had 3 accounts that I worked on. I worked on rolling keyboards, Panasonic, and the Switzerland Board of Tourism. And Panasonic is very rigid. They were not interested in changing. Like, they had very detailed brand guidelines. This is 1998, 99. So digital isn't really thought
right
through
in
that
college.
way.
Yeah.
After I got kicked out of college. Yes, exactly. So, and I needed to pay rent. And so I end up with this career. And Panasonic had this very rigid structure, whereas rolling keyboards did not. Rolling keyboards was like, we have that R, it's like this kind of wavy R, and kind of everything else was up for grabs. They had like, their logo was their typeface kind of, but they had no other type definitions across any other things. And I started to think like, it's more than a logo. First off, it's more than a logo because a logo can just be type, and it's not enough to build off of. And you don't encounter a lot of brands from their logo. Right. You encounter them from whatever product they make, whatever jingle you hear or advertisement. And the logo is always the finishing touch of that, of the reminder. But I know so many people that are like, oh, I didn't know that was blah, blah, blah brand, which I think isn't necessarily bad, because it's like, as long as you're giving them your money, I think that brand has been successful and using their product, right? And I think it really started to hit home for me in car brands. We were starting, like, it was in Santa Monica, Phelps Group in Santa Monica. We're starting to, like, work with car brands, and it was that Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, and you're like, but they're the same company, right? And you're like, and then you start realizing it's not just a logo, it's a story, it's a personality. And I started to think about brands as people and like, who is somebody's story? What did they want to present to me as to like, are they very professional? Are they very casual, right? Did they go to college? Did they that stuff, like all that really important backstory. Like I wanted to understand the brand in that way. And then it just becomes a rabbit hole. The further you go, you realize color doesn't mean a brand anymore.
Right.
And the more digital you get, the less color matters in that regard because it becomes semantic, right? Like, what's Google's color? What's Apple's color?
Yeah.
Anything you need, right? It doesn't matter.
Well, especially when they're, brands have sort of already lashed onto those and have become iconic, Coke with red, et cetera. So it's kind of like you kind of get to this another era of brand after 50s, 60s where things start to change and the brands become a little bit more elaborate. And then you move into the 90s where it's more tech, like you said, now into like the 2000s where it's product, it's not tech, and now it's AI. So it's interesting. Like, I'm curious to see how these brands, what branding means, what visual ID even means as part of a brand, and how that continues to grow. Like, how many colors did you say you were working with the other day for your, and you said we won't make you talk about systems, but I'm making you talk about systems. So, but what was it? How many colors were you working with that you had to identify?
In our tokens, you mean on our data visualization? Our data visualization has 12 different color families with 10 to 11 colors within that color family. And then you can put that within a chart that can have up to 10 colors. And you do the math and you end up with you could have 17.3 trillion variations of that color, right? Because color is no longer the primary vehicle to tell that story. And I think there's eras of brand where logo probably was brand back in the day when your only understanding of the brand was whatever you were given from the brand of I see a print ad, I see a TV ad, or I see the product or hear a radio jingle, right? That's my, and it's very different than now. It's oh, I heard about that brand from some social media influencer who's not even related to the brand, right? Or I see it through the use of their product where color and logo are completely secondary because it's really a product of let me get things done, and it could be thematic and skinned. I see brand influence having to find different ways to inject itself. And it's hard. It really is. How do you know an Apple product, like a digital Apple product, from a digital, Microsoft product? Yeah. There are cues here and there, but they're very subtle and they're very scant. And unlike their physical products, which are very defined, and then their print ads or TV ads, which are even more defined from each other. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting brand conversation that we don't get to have that often.
Yeah. How about you, Adrian? When did that start to click? Because I feel like we all started in that, a brand is this, and then you start to grow in your career and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Brand is so much more. Yeah.
I think for me, 2010, I was working with Experts Exchange. And not even trying to make a joke, so I'm gonna try to keep a straight face. When you break down Experts Exchange, it comes across as expert sex change, and we had to deal with that day in and day out. I remember showing up to the office early. I would show up when sales was getting there 6:30, 7 in the morning. I'd get into the office and time again. They'd be like, yeah, we know the joke. I know, but hey, this is what we offer. And so you lead with your name forward, or your name first. And then, coming down to, I agree with Jon, color has become completely irrelevant, as far as the brand, because what are you trying to sell? That's the thing. You're trying to sell a style, or you're trying to sell, a solution. But going back to Experts Exchange, we didn't have any of that. We just had a poor name. That was it. And when I first started on, we had nothing there. We were trying to kind of dip into other avenues with what were called microsites. We were trying to bring, trying to elevate the product itself, but there was nothing to lean on. And I do remember creating, and I'm very, very guilty of this. We were trying to create just an ad campaign to try to drive up traffic to the site. And since we had no brand or any language, I remember taking a stock photo from, let's just say, iStock or whatever it was, and it was this like woman who was smiling, and the guy was like hugging her, and the heading was, "I've cheated on him 17 times, and he doesn't even know." And it's like, when's the last time you were cheated on by a Q&A site? Because that's what Expert Exchange was. And it failed horribly.
Really? I wonder why.
Like, horribly. And I'm like, I think I was like 24 at the time. Like, I thought it was hilarious. But it's like, oh, dude, read the room, read the audience. You don't actually understand your audience. You don't understand your customer. You don't understand what you need.
Yeah.
You have no brand. And so we're just like kind of putting Legos together to create some sort of ogre that doesn't do anything to keep the brand or keep the product moving forward.
Yeah.
And without having that foundation, you're wandering aimless. And I was too young at the time to realize that. But looking back on it, it's like, damn, that was an opportunity to actually tell everyone to pump the brakes. And how about we focus on what we're actually trying to do, and we're trying to put our foot in this, through the doors, like in this industry, and make a name for Expert Exchange and just own it. That's the other thing too. The older I get, Expert Exchange, oh my God, get over it. Are you 12? Like, get over it. It's fine. And it's just like, you can own that. But I didn't see that at the time. And looking, it's like, man, there was so much growth that I could have had there.
Yeah.
That I wasn't allowing myself to do. I just leaned in to the joke of it all and just had fun with it. And it just didn't land because that's not what the customer wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
No, that's interesting.
I think brand is also too broad of a term. And let me explain myself. So if I'm a digital product, my brand is tied up in what can I do for you, right? Mm-hmm. What can I enable you to do? If I'm a clothing brand, my brand is tied up in who do you see yourself as? If I'm a physical thing, right? Like I'm attaching my brand to what my product is to some extent, right? And so I think when we just say brand, there are different lenses. So if I'm like a clothing brand, I'm an aspirational first kind of brand in general fashion, right? Not functional clothing, not sports clothing, although that can obviously blend into fashion. Or I'm trying to be like, you want to be this person, you see yourself as this person, my brand is for you, right? But if I'm a jobs to be done kind of product, and I'm like Monday or product plan or product board or any of the Asana, all those things, or Notion, I'm not about like, who do you see yourself as? It's like, look at like, what can we do for you? What do you want to see us being able to facilitate for you? And it's less about you as a consumer at that point. It's more about our offerings, whereas the other ones are more about you as a consumer and our, sort of enabling that. And there are blending, right? Apple will do this concurrently to sometimes great effect, to sometimes not great effect, right? Where they'll say, you want to be this kind of person, but you see them leaning that on the consumery side. Oh, this is your iPod. They would do that a lot, right? Or this is your music. But then they'll go to like their work suite. It's not about who you are. It's about what they can do for you. And sort of like a brand that can dance between that conversation of what's important to whom is typically a more successful brand. And the ones that you see miss that mark are like, they want to do, they're often playing catch up. Like, I run a clothing brand, but I want you to feel like a Mercedes. And it's like, but you're just making pants. And like, that's about how I feel about it, not about how many pockets your pants have. The features of your clothing are way less important than the aesthetics. Whereas in something functional, like you can say, like the horsepower of a car will trump the aesthetics of that car for a certain audience, right? Like
Yeah.
the amount of pockets in the pants is probably less a differentiator and more about the style in that, unless it's an excessive amount of pockets.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
who
No,
knows who's
totally.
doing that.
Yeah. And I think and I know you kind of mentioned like, we haven't even talked about the Super Bowl yet, but that is something I want to talk about because I think there's something interesting that I'm noticing. And I think it really speaks about the current industry in terms of what brands are, what they're trying to say, their story, the type of purpose that they inject into their advertising. So if we can all say it's not just the logo, it's not just the color, it's a story. Well, how does that story affect advertising? And I think it's interesting to see the Super Bowl this year in light of, I don't know if you follow Death to Stock, but I love following them on Instagram because they have really cool insights that are really interesting and always feel like really like on point. And a couple of days ago, they talked about authenticity and sort of this like potential post-authentic era that we might be living in or moving towards. And I think that what that means is that we're tired of authenticity being the motivator behind like, oh, it's an authentic brand, or we need to tell an authentic story. Because when that hits the advertising space or marketing space or whatever, it doesn't feel authentic most of the time. Sometimes it hits, but it's really hard. And I think we've been so saturated with that sort of authentic brand or authentic marketing for quite a while now. I mean, we've all heard that, right? We've heard that in meetings. Like, we just need to be authentic.
I don't agree with it though. Like,
so hear me out.
Can you
hear
be
me
in
out.
30 seconds?
Yeah. So that's my point. And I think we've been so inundated with it that now we're like, I'm kind of tired of that. And I felt that this year when I watched the Super Bowl commercials. And there, you every year you kind of get a smattering of both, right? You get the Dunkin' Donuts that's like hyper stylized. It's actually pretty funny. As much as you might like or hate Ben Affleck, it was funny.
Oh, love him. Come on. Why do you
And
hate people?
I don't know,
Come on.
he gets a lot of hate, you know.
I know.
But they made a
Come on,
joke
calm
about
down.
like not having enough money to bring Matt Damon into the commercial, which was
Whatever.
funny.
Yeah.
And then you have, like Hims and Hers that did a commercial and
Oh,
it got a
yes.
lot of backlash
Yep.
because they said, look at the pharmaceutical industry.
Doctor approved, not
They're
FDA approved.
making this, making it hard for people to get in better shape or whatever. But we have a pharmaceutical for you.
Right.
So it's just like, it was like, okay. But to me, that's like the pinnacle of the irony of authenticity that's being served up to us. And I think now it's like, maybe we're moving into an era of design and branding where just have fun with your brand and just paint a picture of what it could feel like to enter into that space. Because if you can see yourself entering into that space, like the Dunkin' Donuts one, where they kind of made fun at Starbucks, they did everything about Starbucks without putting the Starbucks logo. It was like these people wearing green, talking about 30 ingredients in their cup. And they're like, we just make ours with beans and water. And so it was like this interesting thing of like, oh yeah, I associate with that versus that. And that's what a brand does. I associate with that instead of that.
I always hated that in branding, though. I always felt like great brands don't need me to ever acknowledge other brands. I always feel like that's a terrible tactic to get me to fall in love with someone, is to explain how bad other people are. Like,
Doth protest too much.
I didn't like the Mac and Apple ads. I hated that.
I remember that.
Yeah, with
Even though I
Hudson
felt that they portrayed the PC guy as
John Hodgman.
endearing and lovable to some extent.
Justin Long
still
makes a name for himself quite often on this show. I think the last like 3 episodes, his name came up.
Yeah, he sponsors this show, doesn't he?
Yeah, I talked
Him
to him
and
just earlier today.
Squarespace.
Yeah, he does Squarespace. And
Like and subscribe. So click that bell.
click that bell.
So I like a brand that is interesting and clever, but I really am turned off with this other thing is terrible. This thing will solve all your worldly problems. Like, what I want out of authenticity is I want quality. I want, we make something really amazing and it will sell itself. And we just put it all together to show you how amazing this is in a way that's engaging. I feel like if you're doing all these gestures to be like, other things are terrible, you're stealing all the time to explain why your thing is great. And like, if Dunkin' Donuts' whole shtick is that Starbucks puts too much stuff in their coffee and we don't put a lot of stuff or any stuff in our coffee other than coffee, that is not a selling point in my mind. Great, you do less stuff. Is that good? Is that really a thing people complain about Starbucks? There's just too much flavor.
At that time, all you're doing is you're pandering to your customers that you already have. You know, that's all you're doing, and so then you're solidifying that your base audience, but you're not really gathering.
Yeah, people that like Starbucks are going to go to Starbucks.
Yeah,
like you're right, Duncan.
Like, you're going to go there anyway. I
don't want
what is
that.
It? The
oat milk matcha iced latte
that
with
also
low
the
ice
pumpkin
and 2
spice
scoops
latte.
of matcha. And,
pumpkin
which
spice
I
latte.
am saying that
need
because that's
that
what
shit.
I ordered.
It sounds
when I go
really
to
good
Starbucks.
before you say it. I kind of feel like you should go get something matcha related.
Dude, it's really good.
I'll tell
and
you
they
a
changed
brand
their
that
recipe recently, and it's great.
Nice.
Okay.
Anyways.
Sponsored by Starbucks.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying, though, because I
subscribe,
feel like
hit
that is actually something I thought was funny because it made me laugh at myself for doing that a little bit. But they didn't need it because I thought the commercial was funny and colorful. And it kind of didn't need that. It could have just done its own thing. It didn't have to bring that in. So it's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I haven't watched Super Bowl in a while. I think that ad spend is a really bad ad spend. Truthfully, it's a really expensive, trying to hit the broadest audience that may or not have anything to do with you. It's like just a shotgun kind of advertising with too much money. And I know Nike apparently got back into it this year in the brief news that I've been watching. What I really liked about previous Nike advertisement was there's a specific inspirational, motivational vibe to it, which is really appealing for their brand, truthfully. Like, if I'm going to buy shoes or sportswear, I don't want to know all the dry fit, sweat wicking technology, cushiony stuff. I think that's great, but I don't care, truthfully. I assume it should be there anyway. What I want to know is like, is it inspirational enough without being too far out of arm's reach for me? And I feel like that balance is a hard balance to get, but when it gets it right, that's when I think a brand actually can be a really beneficial selling point of like, if you buy, like hint, hint, nudge, nudge, if you buy this, you're on your way to better you. Now, you may not be Michael Jordan, and you may not be this specific athlete or doing those things, but you're on your way to a better you. And I think that is very appealing because it puts me back as the main character in the story, which is what I think advertising should be anyway. It should put me as the character.
Yeah.
Because you're talking to me. It should be a conversation. The heavyset kid that was running Nike ad, and all it is him running, and he's dying out there, and he stops, but he doesn't stay. He starts running again, and that kind of like every day is a chance to be better moment is such a positive thing that could only do well for their brand. Like Nike has sent some great taglines of like, yesterday you said today, like yesterday you said tomorrow would be the day you'd run.
Yeah.
Like, I love that because it's like, we all do say that. And like, just that little moment of like, you could be better. You can be better.
Yeah.
We can help, but it's still you.
Yeah.
And I think brands miss that. They lose it completely a lot of times.
Yeah, I think they did it again. For me, it really resonated, and I thought it was a good example. So the Super Bowl commercial for Nike yesterday, I think it was actually really good because it didn't necessarily have to go down, the sort of like wild, crazy, funny, which again, like even the Little Caesars one with the eyebrows floating around was pretty funny. Yeah. But it also felt authentic in a way, like with the way the type of authenticity I think you're talking about. And so the commercial is a bunch of women athletes who it's like shot stylized that also has some like real moments. It's all black and white, really cool looking. And the whole message is that it builds to is if they say you can't win, just win. And it was like, I got really pumped after watching it. I was like, hell yeah, that's what I want. I like, there's always stuff that kind of gets to us in life and we're like, I don't know if I can do that. Maybe I'm fucking failing. Then you're like, no, I'm just going to win. I'm going to do it. And I think that's great. So to me, I really liked it for that reason. And it didn't have to tap into this like overly sentimental, political one way or the other sort of ad. It just was like, hey, this is a cool message. Let's make something that looks cool and not try to be anything like it's marketing. Let's make it cool and resonate. I thought that was a really good example.
I didn't find the him and hers. Is it him and hers? I can't remember the name of the. I didn't find that problematic. In fact, I sent it to my wife. I found it through a friend of mine works there. He's on the brand team, and the work is beautiful. He does gorgeous work. He always has. I liked it because it felt empowering to me. It felt like the industry is broken. They want you to get stuck and feel bad. And I feel like there's a take back what is actually already yours moment. Yes, you can parse all of that of like, is that actually authentic? This and that.
Well,
but like, the vibe of it is like, I like that because it gives me a sense of this brand, for right or wrong, whether truthful or not, is at least thinking about me as a person versus... And yes, they play a false dichotomy of like the industry, those bigwigs in corporate America don't want you, which is probably true, but also a straw man argument to some extent, right? But I appreciate more of those and less of the, and I didn't watch Superbowl, but I'm pretty much guaranteed there was either a Ford or a Chevy truck ad with a lot of Americana and farmers and heavy lifting dirty people buy this next truck thing because you're American thing.
It would resonate.
I'm sure that existed.
There was a Harrison Ford ad for Jeep, and he goes like, "I support Jeep, even though my name is Ford." It's like, oh fucking goddamn!
See, but that's the thing. I think if you would ask a lot of people, they'd be like, "That's funny. I like it."
It is funny.
It doesn't. We overthink
like,
this stuff sometimes.
I had to roll my eyes.
Funny though.
It's funny.
I think it's funny.
It's not. It's tested and scrutinized. It's boardroom created schlock. That's the way I see it. Like,
I
whether
totally
I
hear
think
you.
it's the kind of joke that's determined, no matter what it does, funny or not, it's specifically there to not offend. And
I see.
Humor shouldn't have its primary vehicle to not offend. It doesn't mean it needs to be offensive. And in fact, I find offensive humor not funny. Also, now that I'm a parent, I'm even more conservative a jerk. But I don't think that's a good measurement for comedy of like, this is guaranteed to make nobody unhappy. It's a comedy should be in a way where unexpected... That's funny,
right?
But I
not
also
too
find,
simple.
Also I don't find that level of comedy appropriate anymore, or almost any level high comedy appropriate in advertising anymore, because most of us don't watch network television, and we don't consume brands in the same way. So this kind of like, remember how funny that was? Doesn't mean anything anymore, because I did plenty of stuff yesterday, and none of it was watching a football game and watching advertisement. But I guarantee I know literally all the brands you're talking about. So how am I getting that information if I'm not consuming the same media? There are other ways to learn about that. And so, like, I think the reason why I think the Superbowl ads are wasteful and useless is because they speak to an American audience that doesn't exist anymore. It's this kind of like, we want them to exist, but they don't exist. There isn't we only turn on network television for the big event on the weekend, and that's how I learn about things. That is not reality anymore. I know that makes people wildly uncomfortable, that the world is a different place, but the world has always been a different place all the time. And it's
continues to evolve.
I'm disappointed that our advertisement still feels this knee-jerk reaction to be like, we must spend millions upon millions of dollars on a thing that we all know is probably diminishing value over time. That disappoints me, because I find that creative advertising should be the place where new ideas are happening, not I have to show up and do the thing.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
It bothers me. It feels like a defeat of creative.
That's a great point. Well, what are some brands that, just in general, kind of commercials aside, because I think it's really interesting to talk about that for a minute, especially in lieu of the Super Bowl. But like, maybe Adrian, like what are some brands, again, marketing aside, commercials aside, that have just like really resonated with you?
Oh, that's
just
gonna
in
be
general.
Like, it'd be athletic stuff. So like Viori's, I'm wearing Vivo Barefoots right now. There's a place called, I think that they're called Lunas or something, another pair of shoes. And all that they're doing is just what I want to do. Be outside.
Are they the running sandals, Lunas? Sandals?
They do have sandals, yes. But they also have like shoes as well. Or like, typical what I'm wearing right now. Speaking of sandals, free runners. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking right now. That sucks. Free runners. But they're another like just like zero drop sandal, and all they're trying to do to me is like. But then again, like that's what it is about advertising, right? You gravitate towards what you want, and what I love is there's no fluff with the brands that I'm trying that I want to buy.
Because they just know like this is our lane.
Hey, yeah. These are made from recycled material. These are like, you will feel the ground as you're walking. It's like, boom, that's what I want. I'm not looking for like cushion or high arch or anything like that. I just want to feel the ground. It helps me like with anxiety. If I can, like, because I can't walk around going back full circle, walk around barefoot, but I can wear these and it makes me feel like
That's
am
cool.
And it grounds me and it reduces my anxiety, because that's like, I deal with it daily. And it's like, and this is like so I love that. And they're all about it, and that's what their marketing is about. It's just being out in nature. Like all their cool. Photography is out at the ocean, or you're out hiking, or you're maybe walking through the city, which is extremely anxiety-inducing for me. But like, boom, like they get me though. Like it's all like, and Viori does the same thing. It's all like athletic wear, and then there's another company. They're not really. I think I'm too old for their demographic, but I like it. But it's Lost Kids or Loose Kids. They're an Australian-based company. Again, more athletic stuff. I think it's just spelled LSKD. And I like that as well. It's just like more in the gym and like doing stuff. And it's like, I get it. You're not trying to sell anything more than the lifestyle that I'm trying to achieve. And it's like, like some of these commercials are getting just too insane to where by the time you're done with it, it's like, what the hell are you selling?
For? Who is this for?
What are you? Yeah,
kind of what you're saying, John. I think
like
that's
Estella Artois, whatever the beer. Like what like they're trying to sell the backdoor environment, and I thought it was a cute, funny one with Matt Damon and David Beckham. It was cute. It was like the other David, and it was cute and whatnot. But it's like,
but I hate Stella, but I'm more fixated on like what this whole is. Like this, like this atmosphere you just created, like this scene, the scenelet that you created. This is awesome. Oh, you're selling beer? It took me. This happened yesterday, and it's taking me a little bit to remember. Oh, they're selling beer. I'm just remembering that scene with them. It's like, well, that was awesome. I almost wonder if the commercial is an interesting point, because it is sort of like, it all kind of comes together in this point. You talked about radio earlier. Now it's this. And whether it's wasteful or not, it seems like the purpose of it, especially the Super Bowl commercials, are not necessarily to convince you to like a brand or to sell a product. It is relevancy. Like, we are here. We just want to remind you, we are one of the beer brands. We are one of the car brands. We should be considered when you are going to be marketed to. So it's sort of like it's a ball, and everyone has to get the nicest dress or tux on.
No, that's perfectly said. It's like the same thing as like, why is Pepsi and Coke still doing advertisement. Like we know that there's Pepsi and Coke out there, but they do that just to like pump it in. It's like we are still relevant.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think they do it because they feel like if they don't, somebody will get fired and shareholders will be unhappy.
I think
but it has
there's that
nothing
too.
to do with reality anymore.
That too.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I love what Adrian said because there's I wear clothes that reflect how I see myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't seek them.
A college graduate with terrible hot collegiate,
takes.
really, just collegiate.
A collegiate hot take. So I like very similar things to Adrian, which is interesting. I like a brand called Rourke.
I love
mostly because I love their
Literally
running
was wearing
clothes. So I don't wear.
earlier.
It's interesting. I don't have Rourke clothes because they have a bunch of other clothes for surfing and outdoor winter stuff and just lifestyle. Very Brixton like outdoor kind of stuff, like lifestyle. I like Run Amok, which is a Rourke brand. They're the only shirts I'll wear when I run. They're the only shorts I'll wear when I run. But it's less about what's on them. I think they're kind of nice. What's on them?
Cool
They're
little
kind of
illustrations.
hippy dippy kind of
Yeah.
stuff, which I kind of dig. It's kind of how I see myself when I run.
It's like
Very
moto,
free.
but hippie and like
Yeah, and I kind of dig that.
Yeah, it's cool.
But the materials are like this rubberized kind of
They're
very
nice,
very tactile. Like I love that vibe. I like sweatshirts and socks, usually from cycling brands more than anything. Like this is from Team Dream, which is a cycling shop in LA. I got a bunch of stuff from them. My socks I only wear cycling socks because they're the best quality socks I could find. I also run in those socks because they're good moisture wicking. Like I get my socks from a place called Victory Chimp and other places like Radavist and like this kind of like outdoorsy, smaller shops, which is appealing, but it's not a prerequisite for me. I don't have to like know a dude is making the money. If it's a corporation, it's a corporation. If it's a dude, it's a dude. I'm totally cool with that. I think I like what I like. As far as brands that have really resonated with me, I shared this with y'all in our Slack. The Figma stuff is really interesting to me, not because Figma's this big brand and they do beautiful stuff, which is all true. I'm fascinated with the amount of effort and precision and craft put into these micro features. These micro feature videos are so fascinating with like auto layout and aspect ratio and color picker. There's a 30-second, 60-second sizzle on the color picker within it. I love that we're taking digital products and breaking them down into like little tiny micro products within the digital suite. And I think that's really interesting. I think there's a lot of advertising potential of like, if Adobe would be like, in this one thing of Adobe, this one feature got its own thing, and I'm sure that probably already does exist. I would love to see more of that micro advertising within that, and then they package it with learning curriculum. I think there's a big market of curriculum coming out, specifically digital, which is, I think, a really interesting
Have you seen Webflows? Webflows,
it's really
so
nice.
good, and it's funny. It's shot really well. Like, if I don't know if you guys ever used Video Copilot in like their tutorials, but Andrew Kramer, like, really funny, and it was like, oh, this is awesome. It helped me learn After Effects so much better because it was fun to listen to, and I feel like Webflow, like, I would like to learn it. I kind of started and then just stopped, but
go to Framer.
But anyways, watching some of their videos, I was like, they're literally like characters. Like, these are people and they all have personalities and they're teaching you things, but there's almost like a little skit element to it. And so I guess that's kind of what I meant earlier about like going from story to character.
You know, you're tapping into, so you start with authenticity, right? And what do we really mean when we're talking authenticity? We're talking about human connection.
Yeah. Totally.
And this learning curriculum is that human connection. You're getting, I wanted to learn from another person. I wanted to be talk to like I'm a real person.
Yeah.
Like what's appealing to me with like Rourke, for example, is yes, there's of course a marketing budget there. There's of course a brand narrative, but there's also a, hey, you're a person and you do lots of different things and you don't have to do everything here. And we're not fully always aspirational, inspirational. Sometimes it's like, you just want to look good while you work out. That's totally cool. You want to look like a dirt bag and work out. That's totally cool. I always feel resonance with brands that tell me, without telling me, you have a seat at this table. You are included. Like, do you like to run? Sure, you can involve. Do you just like to look like you run? That's also very cool, by the way. Do you like to look like you just fell off a snowboarding hill, but you've never actually snowboarded? That's totally cool. Like, I like a brand that is okay with that vibe of like, there's no gatekeeping, but there's also a quality quotient of like, hey, we know you're not a professional athlete, and maybe you just do this for the hopes that you'll get better, or maybe just love it. And we honor that. Like that narrow area, that bandwidth of, non-gatekeeping but quality quotient,
right,
is where I think we all are looking to brands to be like, okay, I'm not an expert in a thing, but you care enough to give me expert tools in a thing that I'm still not an expert.
Right.
Like, I like that duality. It's very appealing.
That was Webflow for me. I'm still interested in, it's not even the thing I do professionally, but I do like making sites here and there. And I would like to learn something like that, but just simply because I know it works with Figma, and that motivates me. So maybe I'll learn Framer, like you said, but anyways, I think that's a good point. Like, I'm not a web designer, but it did make me feel like, hey, you can use these. These people are funny. They're fun to listen to.
That reminds me of a joke. Mitch Hedberg, the late great Mitch Hedberg, and it's like Gatorade. Gatorade's always telling me that it's like athlete, and I'm butchering the joke. It's like athlete. It's like, well, what if I'm not an athlete and I'm just a thirsty dude? I would like some Gatorade. Is it okay if I can have some Gatorade? But all the ads are saying like, go run, go work out, go play basketball. No.
Yeah. Totally.
And then they make the blue Gatorade, which no one who would ever work out would be like, I'm drinking that blue goo.
I mean, to me, it's
like
all
the stuff they put the combs in at the barber shop.
Oh, goodness.
Totally mouthwash. Yeah.
Please tell me they don't put the combs in mouthwash. That would be terrible.
No, it looks like mouthwash.
It does. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting talking about this stuff, and I love the conversation around, again, kind of going from, it's not just visual ID. What does that mean? How does authenticity play a role in brand? What are the implications of that when it comes to advertising and marketing? I think one thing I am still kind of curious about, though, is, and we keep going back to authenticity and what that means. So you kind of hinted at it just now, but like, where do we see that going in the next 10 years? Like, what do we?
I don't think we see it going in a good direction at first.
Well, where do you? Yeah, okay, no, unpack that. No, yeah.
So I'm gonna give a hot take on a thing,
dude.
But I want to
only
explain
hot
myself
takes
when I do it. So I very much admire Pentagram, Paul Scheer, that whole crew. I mean, they were my design heroes. They still remain my design heroes. And I love the work they do. They recently did, and I can't even remember what brand. So that's your first knock, if I can't remember the brand. But they did a thing with AI. And I don't have a problem with them doing a thing with AI to help them generate concepts in that. What I was
the illustration system, right?
Yes. What I was left crestfallen with at the end was, it didn't look any better than just a mediocre design would do, and I felt like I like when a tool like AI, and I do say that term deliberately. I think AI should still remain a tool. It should not remain the substitute for human creativity, because I think something really important and evolving and growth oriented is lost when it replaces what we have in our head, which I think is extremely important. And like, what would bother me is they did the thing, they did the gesture, and the result was a mediocre, interesting, but it wasn't like, wow, it was doing it to elevate. It felt like it was doing to check a box off to prove a point, like, we're relevant, we can do AI. And I believe that. I believe that they did intend that. What was disappointing is I actually think they're better than that. I've seen a lot of their brands, and they are beautiful, thoughtful, emotional pieces that a great brand, when you look at it and you're like, oh, I wish I had done that. I wish I was part of that. And I looked at this, I was like, okay. Like, it was kind of that's cool. It's not great. Like, it looked like just another round to me. It was solid. But I look at, this is what you got the artificial intelligence to do for you? Like, it felt like they were checking a box instead of saying, we incorporated our big brains with this intelligence and to make something even more interesting. And it was kind of like, we used it and it spit out the mid-level, and because we're good designers, we polished, but it felt flat to me. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of those, like Secret Invasion credits, where it's like, it's done for AI instead of done because it was good work.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The Marvel Secret Invasion thing. When you look at it, you're like, that's AI. Yeah. That's not a positive statement, by the way. When you're like, oh, that's clearly AI. It wasn't like, oh, that's amazing. I really want to see that. Oh, that looks like it came from Territory Studio, or that looks like it came from Blur, or one of those amazing little shops, right? Little big shops that do amazing work. Like, it looked like it does the thing. It's kind of morphing, and it looks kind of like, yeah, of course, you spit it into the computer and spit it out. Yeah, I'd use a different term, but I think we'll see a lot of those. The laziness of that. Once again, I know very talented people worked on both of these things, and I have no intention of slagging on their hard work. I just feel like if they hadn't had that tool, they would have created something better, truthfully. Yeah. I feel like the tool held them back more than anything else.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff, we've all worked on projects that didn't hit, or we didn't quite dial in our process. And that's the point of this show. It's like, we want to like get into it and talk about stuff, because as designers, we know we're all sort of dealing with stuff like this, and we're all trying to use new tools that are out there, understand how the industry is evolving and things are changing, and trying to follow it. And it's fucking hard. And so that's why we talk about it. We don't always agree on stuff. I'm like, I don't even necessarily hate the Hers and Hims commercial. I think it's interesting and I have a point of view on it. You might disagree with that. That's fine. That's what's great about this stuff too.
No, I don't disagree with it. I think it's gorgeous, and I think your point of like, but you're also a corporation. Like, I totally agree with that.
Yes. No, it is done really well in a lot of ways too. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I think even with AI, it's like, I tend to swing back and forth on it a lot, which I'm like, oh, that's just the human condition. That's what happens. But I think for me, like, I agree with you. It's the tool, and it'll be interesting to see how that tool supports not just building brands, but executing on behalf of those brands. How do we use it? But it's interesting because you talked about relevancy, and we were talking about that with the Super Bowl commercials. And I think maybe what I'd love to see in a quote unquote post authentic era in a way is, or at least the like bad side of that, is just like starting to do away with this need to be relevant. It's sort of like the kid in the back of class that's acting out because no one's paying attention to them, and they're just like throwing a fit because they want to be relevant. And I think there is something interesting, because I feel like that's a reactive thing. And the problem with these new tools is the good thing is that they can help us do things maybe a little bit faster and more efficient, that can allow us to be maybe more creative than not. And I've experienced that in really positive ways. I do also think sometimes when you speed things up too much, then what happens is you start getting, it gets out of hand, and you start seeing, oh, it's faster. Now I can be more relevant because I can get to it quicker. But again, So the problem I don't think is necessarily the tool. I think it's more of we want to be relevant. Whether it's let's just spend a shit ton of money on a Super Bowl commercial, or let's make sure we're the first to do it with AI. It's not black and white, but I do think that when it's done wrong, it's this concept of relevancy. Like I just want to be relevant. And I don't know. It's something interesting about that to me.
The problem with AI and the way we're using it is, first off, we think speed was the thing we were missing, and that mattered. I disagree. I think quality was the thing we're always yearning for, and what actually matters in brand. Human beings communicating with other human beings should still be the heart and soul of brand.
Yeah.
And I think if the best AI you see is not known as AI, if you never knew it was AI, then that's great.
Perfect.
At that point. But I want, so when what's great,
it's kind of like, remember,
visually,
that looks photoshopped. It's that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the new,
exactly.
It's the new, that looks photoshopped.
It is. So if I watched, so I've been playing this game. It's this Yoshi Crafted World.
Right.
And it's not a new game by any stretch of the imagination. And I was watching with my son, watching on the couch last night. It's YouTube. Someone just a whole playthrough. And it's this beautiful game of like, looks like it's made out of cardboard, has this handmade feel. And that is such a satisfying feeling to see a digital recreation of a physical thing, with an artist touch. It is that vibe. And like, I think that is what we're yearning for, because there is how about I built this out of cardboard? And then like, what was the name of that one band? It's like, Go or something. They're famous for their videos where they were all on the treadmill.
Yeah.
Well, not the Goo Goo Dolls.
No. Not Goo Goo Dolls.
I'm joking.
Damn it.
I'm joking.
No.
The ones who are on a treadmill.
Okay Go or
yes.
Okay Go.
And so what is so fascinating about their videos, right?
There's a name for that, right? The mousetrap thing. What's that called?
Yeah, like a Rube Goldberg.
Yes, that's what
exactly
it is. Rube Goldberg. Yep.
So they do those things, and why do those things matter to us? Because they're hard, because they're physical. They take precision and planning and artistry and luck. And they combine them. But if they're just done with a computer only, with an algorithm, and they will be perfect, then they lose this messy humanity that we all relate to.
Yeah.
Like, I say this all the time in design systems, but I believe it's a widespread thing beyond design systems. They are made by people for people. And that person-to-person communication is why they matter. Why someone would make a thing for another person to enable them to make something for someone else is such a time-tested craftsmanship, getting back to roots thing that we all hear. What happens when we have a pandemic? We can't talk with each other. We bake bread. We make things on our own. We physically make things. Why do we make things? Because it fills a void in our life of, I can still do a thing. I have control over an object. I can make beautiful things even when I don't feel beautiful or feel like the world is beautiful. Like, that is a really very human thing to do. But if I'm just pressing a button to spit out the next beautiful thing, the value of that beauty, even to me as the creator, is gone, right? Like the day you get, like the first time I got like cable TV and there was 1 billion channels, and I was like, oh my God, I can watch literally anything I want. And then like an hour later, none of it mattered because it was all just anything I wanted.
I mean, that's how it is
but
right
there was
now.
no struggle.
Even more, right?
To it.
Like we go looking for movies to watch and we're like, I have no idea. I feel like we've seen everything and we've seen nothing and there's just nothing else to watch. And it's like, It's the same thing. Yeah, I totally
we skip through the beautiful intros to these movies because they're all so gorgeous and beautiful, but I've seen them all 1,000 times. The thing that comes up with the sand that turns into the blah blah with cubes that intersect.
How many times do you click skip intro on a TV show?
Every single time. I don't even watch them initially anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Because I'm like, I know what show
I know
I'm
what you're
watching,
going to do. You're going to do that thing.
And it pains me because it's like skipping over a diamond. Because you're like, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of diamonds. And you're like, I feel like such an elitist jerk. And I'm skipping over something beautiful.
Well, as one that pays someone to cut their grass with scissors, I would imagine that you've seen your fair share of diamonds.
They're tweezers. Okay, let's be clear.
Okay, sorry.
No, the one movie that I would never bypass is Catch Me If You Can. The intro to that is brilliance.
Yeah.
So Catch Me If You Can, an older movie at a different era, right? And a callback to Saul Bass.
Yep, exactly. Saul Bass with John Williams, or I think it was John Williams doing the music, and like having that Saul Bass doing like Vertigo, like all of those old. Oh my goodness gracious, so beautiful.
And for any,
but if you did them now, I think they would lose its value. Truthfully,
fair. That's
fair.
For
any budding motion designers out there, start with Saul Bass. Just
Hell yeah.
Little tip there. Well,
CBS logo, right? Wasn't Saul Bass? He did the CBS logo. Didn't he do like the first UPS logo as well?
Maybe, yeah.
Like the very original?
more than a motion. I mean, he's a designer, but I think
let's go.
Kind of the first.
Bring it.
Oh, is this the show and tell portion?
It is.
Is this the show and tell portion of the?
I think it is now.
So I think
he did IBM. He did the old IBM, like with the I with the B. Yeah, he did all. Yeah, dude, he's. He was
so
brilliant.
I want to touch upon this because I think we're naturally disposed to do these gestures of new technology, over-indexing on new technology, having to reset our brains to, hey, remember when people used to read things on paper? And someone's like, you mean like books? And like books. And like now there's a big book thing. I think we do this a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Honestly,
yeah.
I think to answer your question very succinctly, Jon, I think you'll see a lot of the Coke ad scenario where it's fully generated, but it's low quality. It's how many can I spit out? A lot more until they've jumped that shark. And then someone's like, hey, check this out. I made this paper, paper mache thing ad, and people are like, oh my God, how did you make that? And it's like, and then we'll get back to like the end credits of what's the one with Jim Carrey and the kids, based off the books, the children's books.
Yeah. I forget. I know
a series of unfortunate events.
That's it.
Oh, limited
that
snicket.
end credits.
Yes.
Have you seen the end credits? It's all kind of like paper-like and like light theater kind of thing. I think we'll get back to that because
it's inspired and it's
that's
intentional.
Engaging.
Yeah. Those are the two.
Exactly.
Yeah, intentional. I think is. It's not.
I can't
it's
remember
not
the team
relevant.
who did that. They're out of Ojai. I can't remember their
cool.
team, but they do that cool stuff. I think we'll see that, right? We're like, we want to honor the hard work as a vessel for the art. I think one of the biggest, I love Picasso. I absolutely adore Picasso because there was a precision to his work, even though it doesn't look precise.
Yeah.
Try and make Guernica yourself. Good luck, right? Like there's a precision of light and shadow, even though they're simplistic shapes. But the knock is always on Picasso. Anyone could draw that, right? Like that's because we fail. Like some of our art critique is how hard is it? Sometimes, and it's for good and bad. Why do we all yearn towards like Pixar when it was coming out? Because it looked really hard and looked really detailed. And now Pixar's kind of come down, not because the stories aren't great. Like sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but because there's a billion of them.
Yeah.
Because anybody can be making these beautiful things now. And it's like, why do I care? That great, look at that water effect. Yeah, I saw that water effect on a YouTube channel too. I saw that water effect on like a free stock art thing.
Yeah.
Right?
It
and
can't
I think we've gotten this. the hard matters again.
Totally.
Right?
This is something I've been trying to square a lot lately too, of like there is something to be said about a tool that can help you do something faster. Great. But I think what's more important is what is it trying to make you do faster? The craft, like the crafting of it, or is it trying to help you find something new and unique faster? And I don't think it's a farce to say that everything can be sped up. I think it's not that it should take time. It's that the point is that it takes time, because in the time that it takes is how you are connecting. So for me to connect with Adrian is not like, I'm going to text you a couple times. It's let's go grab a coffee and go for a walk, which we do. And it's awesome. And it's like my favorite thing, to do like throughout the week when we check in, and that's great. But that's why it's great, because it takes an hour. That's why these podcasts are more popular these days, because they're to freaking Lex Friedman taking 5 hours on some of his podcasts, Yeah. I listen to them all the way through, and like, that's because that's the point. So it'll be interesting to see that there's a benefit for things, you have After Effects scripts, you have, plugins with Figma, it speeds up a lot of stuff. Great. Speed that stuff up, but do it so that it can help me focus on the things that can help me find more unique, original, fresh ideas, so that when I'm building brands and I'm talking about brands, they can be more interesting and feel more crafted, because I didn't have to do the mundane. Now I could spend my time doing the real human connection part of that craft, So it's going to be interesting. It's a balance, and,
Who are these people that need stuff sped up, by the way? Is it you?
I mean,
Is it you, Adrian? I don't feel that way. I work in creative all day long.
Well, I think it's execs,
in an area of the world that is all about efficiency, right? I run design systems, like I work in design systems, all about it. I rarely use most plugins, truthfully.
Interesting.
Because what is it speeding up? It's most of the time slower than my hands. And I've never felt and I've worked in this industry a long time with crazy time. Like, I've rarely felt like I didn't have enough time to do a thing.
Yeah.
That some machine would have solved for me. Yeah. I would rather a machine help me understand what a client wants. Or I like ChatGPT for research when I'm like, can you help me answer this one question? What other thing, like in text-based, I really want my AI to be more text-based than physical-based a lot of times. Like, I don't want it to do a thing I don't know how to do. I want to learn how to do a thing so I can know how to do a thing, so I can adjust a thing, because human beings are messy. And what our designers need out of our system is not straight out of a textbook, and not what every other designer in the universe needs either. I need to adjust for those times. I need to solve for individual human beings. Yeah. I want to know how to do that thing. I am not a person who's like, oh, I need a machine to do this quickly for me. It's like, I manually do so much stuff in design systems that, like, I worry. So I've tried AI, by the way, and not like some Luddite that's like, the machines are bad, and I just want to hit my machine with a stone or something. I do a macro a lot. I've written macros, and I'm big about efficiency where it can be. You know what I end up spending most of my time doing? Going back through it and manually making sure it didn't screw up a thing in bulk. So why spend 16 hours trying to macro thing when I could spend 6 minutes just doing the thing? Totally. And it's like, I'm so much quicker with quick keys and just going through and selecting and doing the thing than doing, hey, do all of them. And then I got to go through it anyway to make sure it didn't F it up. And so, like, I don't know, who are these people that we're dealing with that are like, I need a machine to make me faster? I'm like, am I just a weird person who's I think fast at things?
I think it's an interesting point. I think it's less about faster, and I think there's I like it when there's efficiencies in what I'm doing, because not everything I'm doing is is the thing I want to just sit with and think about. Sometimes and I use After Effects a lot because there's tons of plugins that speed up your workflow. And that's great because then even just literally a particle system, like, okay, make a particle system manually so that you can control it in a certain way, or use that plugin and then control it. So I think that's what I mean when I talk about speeding up. I think there's certain ways
Isn't
that you
that just a macro though, right?
That's
like
true.
A
That's a
smart
good,
object
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
idea.
Totally. And I think that's where I'm more speaking. So I think we get off the rails sometimes with that thinking. And that's where we kind of keep coming back to. And that's why, again, I'm using it as an example, but that idea of After Effects when it comes to technology, speaking of workflows, is actually a good example. And I'm really curious to see how, and now we've kind of moved away from brand a little bit, but I think it fits within it because this is sort of, I feel like as we continue to do these, it's going to be hard to not talk about AI. And in some ways, I think it's kind of important to see where is it at? How are we thinking about it? How does it apply to the topic, like the brand that we're thinking about right now?
No, I was just going to say, like, it's still like tangentially related, obviously.
Totally.
It's so who are these outside factors that need you to move fast? There are deadlines, there are certain things, whether it be your boss or whether it be, like I was saying, like advisors or board members or whatnot, we need to see this. And so you are going to cut corners when you need to. And so going back to the brand, using AI to maybe just pump out something that's going to be generic, but to Jon's, it's always fun, the two Johns. But to Delman,
you can call me by my last name. Everyone always does.
To Delman's point, though, is it might be slower in order to solidify, say, a brand element, but there is going to be a key factor to that, and that's the human touch. And the AI can help you get there. Like, we all get in ruts. We all get stuck and it's like, God damn it, I can't think of what am I supposed to do here? And like you type in something like, oh, sweet, I can play with that. And then boom, and I can massage that and make it work. And so there's always that thing of like, not doing that, after that, not massaging it, like, oh, it's done, it did it for me, but
I can't do it.
I know,
can't,
and I
totally ruins it all for me. Actually.
And I think that's totally
fair.
Fair,
creative and inspired.
But okay, so that's totally fair. And then I think the way that I'm looking at it right now is go open up that Saul Bass book and start looking through that. There's inspiration. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing like typing in a prompt to get that inspiration. I'm not going to use the shit that it's going to like spit out because it's horse shit. And I'm not going to, it doesn't deserve to see like, the human eye, at least from my hand, it's not, but it's going to give me something to then go and create something. That's what I'm trying to say. So
no, it makes sense. Yeah. So we're in the process right now of thinking about how can we evolve the system, how can we evolve the platform, and that always results in let's do some exploration, right? Let's do some color exploration, let's do some shape exploration. And I think a lot of my peers might do an AI thing where they're kind of doing that. I didn't want to go there for two reasons.
Ooh.
I didn't want it to be easy, because I wanted it to be thoughtful, and I wanted it to be like, oh, that appealed to me. So I wanted it to come to me. And so I didn't want it to spit out a bunch of stuff. So what I did was, let's just see what other people are doing. And I would just kind of look around. And then I've been spending a week on it. And this week I'm going to spend on typography. So last week I spent on color. This week I'll spend on typography. And I'm differentiating those two on purpose. Yeah. And so, but every night I'm sitting there watching my YouTube in bed, doing my thing, watching my Nerd Forge and my Jazza and all the fun art things I watch. And then I'll see like a little piece of an interface. It'll be like, oh, that's an interesting button. Screen cap. Put it in my Slack to send to myself. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool. And like I get off on these tangents of like inspirational hunts. And like that to me is much more relevant because it appealed to me, which tells me something caught my eye. Yeah. And it wasn't like, here's a gazillion, which they all just kind of start to go to gray. And I'm not just copying it verbatim either. When I get there the next morning and I look through my Slack, there's a bunch of Slack messages to myself of screen caps and rando stuff. I don't understand why I did all the things I snapshotted to myself. Then I go, oh, let me see if I can design that. I feel that's my second point is like, I require my design work to feel like it's my design work.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment where another thing did it for me, it's no longer mine. And I don't understand what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy it either because it's like, yeah, I just pressed a button. I'm embarrassed internally about it. Like the whole point of any of this that I do for a living is gone. And if I can't have those things to what I do for a living, why am I doing any of this is the truth.
Yeah.
Like I've never run into a scenario with terrible stakeholders like I need this immediately that some machine would magically have made that better.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how amazing, if it spit out the Picasso they were looking for, that's not making it better. That makes it worse for me. I'd rather slave on it and work hard on it and get closer and defend it. And I think design requires defense, by the way. It's a fragile little creature that requires me to defend it.
Yeah.
And like, I want that. And why would I starve myself for that for the sake of speed, which is marginal, by the way, too.
So I almost think, I think we talk about speed a lot, and I know I kind of brought it up earlier, but I think for me, like the analogy that I love to use when it comes to AI or just literally plugins and presets and whatever you want to call it, 'cause to me, it's just sort of another one of those exponentially. It's a guitar and an amplifier and a guitar pedal. And I know that I have a voice, I have a history, I have a perspective. I know that there's something unique there that is only how I would approach it. And I want to amplify that. And I don't sometimes just want to amplify it. I want to fuck with it and turn the knobs and make it sound weird. And how do I get feedback? And that's how I like to use the tools. So for me, I really like writing. I'm not a writer. I've written a lot of things in the past, whether it's, scripts or a few articles when I worked at a magazine years ago, but I don't write. It's not my trade. So I'm rusty, but I really like using chat to help me write. And how I use it, and we talked about it a little bit on the Prompt Strikes Back, is influenced by our guest, Marcus, who was like, just talk to your phone, just talk to chat, talk for like 30 minutes, even if you need to write something that's 60 seconds long. And I started doing that and just talk to it. All right, condense this down. And then it condenses it down. But I don't stop there. I go back and forth and back and forth. I still put time into it, but I use it as like the sparring partner. And then I edit it. I tell it what I want it to say. And now I've gotten to the point where I've built my own GPTs. Like I have my own that I keep trying to improve to get to sound like me more, but it grows as I grow, and it just augments. There isn't an element of speed, but I don't lean on the speed. I use the speed to amplify what I'm trying to do and say. Does that make sense? Like
it does. I use ChatGPT in slightly the same way. So what I'll do, and I write too, what I use it for is I say, I'm curious what the relationship between a designer and an engineer is. What other industries have a similar relationship in there? And I'll spit out, contractor to architect, composer to orchestra
that's
member.
cool.
And I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if I can write an article off of that thing. And I don't let the easy thing would be like, hey, ChatGPT, help me write an article about this. I don't do that because I know it'll write an article, and I know it'll be like, oh, I wish I'd said that. In that moment of like, I wish I'd said that, it means like, I just gave away the thing that I'm doing this all for in the first place of the moment of creation. I just gave that away. And I'd be like, okay, you go write this fun article. I'll go do the dishes. And it's like, I'd rather you go do the dishes than I'll go write this article. And so like, what I do like is like, hey, that'd be interesting. What are those relationships like? And then right there, I'm like, cool, let's put away for later. And I don't ever write anything for like a month after that first idea because I want to come back to it and be like, am I still interested in this? Does this make any sense? Do you think anybody might read this? That last one is kind of negligible. I don't. Sometimes I'm like, I don't care. I'm just gonna read it anyway. But like,
mostly because I know.
If you read any of the ones I've written, even I'm like, that's really niche and boring. So I think that sacred little bubble with it. So your guitar analogy is interesting to me. So like, I don't play any instruments. I have no musical talent. So imagine if I took the guitar and I'm like, hey, can you write me a song, AI, and play it? And then I'll write a few and we'll combine it together. And then I'll say, this is my song. And you would look at that and go, but the reason why I'm playing guitar is because I like playing guitar. Because I've worked to get better at playing guitar, and there's an art form to it. There's a muscle memory and a skill and an open creativity and an open invitation to screw up and have happy accidents, by the way. And you've taken all that away because you were only interested in the end product and not in the journey.
Yes.
The set end product. And that is my worry, because that end product is so close now. It used to be a journey. And one would argue it doesn't need to be the journey it used to be.
No. Yes.
Like,
that
Photoshop
is the point.
without layers was a pain in the butt.
Right.
And I'm glad there's layers now. And I'm glad there's other things. But imagine if it went from Photoshop with no layers to big shiny red Photoshop button that just makes the thing you want. That journey,
well, it's up to us to find that journey.
Is so important to us as human beings. To that struggle, that understanding what good is, not being able to make that good for years because it required you to understand the nuance and screw up stuff. But the easy button that does that for me nowadays is like, it's too tempting to most people.
I think.
And it's sad, I think, more than anything else.
Yes, and I don't think it has to. And this is, I will always be the eternal optimist. And I think that, so another musical analogy, because there's not just one button. How many freaking AI things are out there now, whether they write or make pictures or songs or whatever. And that's just the gen side of it, right? There's so much more out there. We just talk about that because that lends itself to our industry. There's a lot of big red buttons. And there's the guitar analogy, there's the DJ analogy, where you're going to a record store, you're flipping through records. All right, cool. Yeah, I like that song. I like that part of that song. I like this one. Boom, 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 boom. Grab the records. I mean, there's a digital way to do that. I'm just talking about the more analog way of going to a record store. But that idea of, I'm finding all the red buttons. I'm seeing what happens in this moment when I press that red button and I start to bring them together. And then you start to become someone who is not just relying on the end product, but you go, okay, I have an opportunity to have a different kind of journey. And I'm going to use these tools in an unexpected way to make something that still brings craft into it, but does something that I couldn't do before then. And I think that's interesting. I think so my point is, it's up to us to not just go, I don't like the tool and I'm not going to use it, which is very Luddite of us. And I think it's going, I don't like the tool. It annoys me that it's this big red button. It annoys me that people talk about this stuff in a certain kind of way. Well, fuck yeah, I'm going to use it in my own way. I'm going to try this thing and I'm going to run it through this and I'm going to plug this in here. I'm going to turn these knobs, check this out. And everybody's like, how the hell did you make that? How did that's so cool and interesting and it looks unique. I think it's on us to sort of find that sense of play again. And it's hard. I talk to a lot of designers that are overwhelmed and frustrated and apprehensive to use these tools, and it's understandable. But it's up to us, like whether you want to start playing with this stuff and try it out. Even if you hate it, maybe you'll like it if you do it this way. And I think it's worth it to try that. Like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
it's not an expectation. I'm just saying I think it's worth it. Think you know what I mean?
It absolutely is. And I do use in certain contexts. I have yet to see it show up, at least in my world, where I'm like, oh, that made this thing that I hated so much easier, which freed up my time to do unlock this other thing that I've never had time to do. I've not experienced that yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of what it's doing is like, oh, I already did that. Or, oh, I already made a thing myself that does that. Yeah. And that's okay. I don't blame AI for doing a thing I've already done. It's not its fault. But, it's not any of those things. I think we're so obsessed in our culture with the end result that we discount the journey. And I know why we do this, because we are inundated with fractions of imagery and fractions of stories all the time. We own, oh, you didn't win the Tour de France 4 straight years? You won it 2 years and you lost one and then you won it the next year?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not the champion I thought you were. It's like, okay, like the journey was more important. The individual stages, that individual climb was important, right? Like the historical aspect, like all these things we've glazed into, like what can show up on your Wikipedia to be a stat that has to make you the greatest of all time. Like it's become this like, can I put you all down for a single quantifiable metric to create a narrative of you're good or not good? And that is not how human beings can operate. Like there are the gymnast who smartly took time out to recover her mind and her body.
Oh yeah, Simone Biles. Yep.
Right? And well, what's her legacy going to be? It's like, pretty amazing, truthfully. Like, if who cares? She is smart to honor herself and her mind and her body to come back and do amazing. And we then amplify, well, she came back. How's she ever going to do? As if that 1 year or whatever she's going to lose all the talent. It's like, that is the problem with these narrow slices of humanity that we have become. So you want to really get to authenticity. Authenticity is not a narrow slice conversation. Authenticity is warts and all. Authenticity is, hey, we know that you are messy as people, and we love that about you. We are messy as a brand. We are dialed on the things that matter to us because they matter to you. And we are people that hold ourselves accountable to pride and quality. But you are messy. And we want to be part of your messy world. And we honor your messy. That's what Nike's done very well. Of like, we know you're not all 6'4", brilliant basketball players from youth. We know some of you are short dudes, short women, overly heavyweight, like all these normality of humanity, right? And like, there's a place for you in sport. And we want to help you be part of that place in sport.
For sure.
We know none of you are going to do this for a living. And we don't want you to judge your last run on what a sprinter did in their last run, which is very hard, by the way. When I'm running, to not be in my own brain of like, every run has to be a PR, every run's got to be as good as so-and-so. Maybe just a run is a thing that I do for myself because I enjoy it, and the numbers don't matter. But that's very hard for us to do because we have gotten ourselves in an inauthentic world of our own creation, truthfully.
Totally.
We are still messy.
It's mirroring
but
that.
We want to ignore it now. So
marketing sometimes mirrors that inauthenticity and calls it authentic.
Our social media has created a false picture of who we are as people. Like, when's the last time you were on any social media and had an authentic, nuanced, deep conversation that you weren't offended or offended someone?
I just don't have conversations on social media, so.
But you do have conversations with people all the time, right? So our social media is not actually a reflection of how we are as people. You go on a walk with Adrian. We're having a conversation now with nuance and confusion and debate. But you can't go online and have that? Why not? Why can't we go online and have that? Because we have this expectation, I believe, of it's going to be the answer or nothing in the smallest digestible thing, because apparently we're all so busy that we can't actually talk to each other. I don't know anyone who's actually that busy. I think you're all BSing the world. None of us are that busy. None of us are that, because you all had time to watch a freaking football game last night. None of you are that busy.
Well, I think
but that's okay. You shouldn't be that busy.
Yeah.
But we all pretend like we're too busy to actually talk with each other.
Totally.
Which is inauthentic, I think.
I think that's a great ending for our The Brand episode.
Yeah.
But we still have to, and we can make it quick if we need to, talk about our favorite monsters. We have to end every episode with that. So I haven't even thought about mine. So I'm going to have to think about it.
All right, I got mine. I guess a monster is just expectation. And in diving into something that you think is going to happen. Let's go back to the Superbowl, right?
Yeah.
And this is nothing. I'm using this because we've been bringing it up time and time. So, not the Eagles, the Chiefs. They were supposed to three-peat. It was going to be like, whoa, and then Mahomes was supposed to be the GOAT, and all of this expectation around that. And it's life gets in the way. Life will muck things up. And stop putting all your eggs in one basket. And when you don't do that, and you think that a certain outcome will happen and it doesn't, there is this false sense of I'm just gonna be very layman's with it, sadness and just reprieve. It's dude, you put that on yourself. Mm-hmm. And so having these expectations in life, just take life for what it is.
Yeah,
and enjoy it. You don't need to you didn't get that job, something else will come up. You know what I mean?
Totally,
all right, it's chill, dude. You're fine. So yeah, I think it was just apt because we kept bringing up Superbowl, and I thought it was just a hilarious storyline this morning of the Chiefs lost. Who literally cares? And if you do care,
most people I know
up.
were rooting for the Eagles. So.
Oh yeah,
definitely feel like most people were.
LG.
No, I love that, man. Mine actually, as I was sitting here, I'm maybe I was actually kind of going through a thought process. I was working through some shit over the weekend internally, and I think that actually would be the same one for me. Dealing with some expectations of my own from some work I was doing last week, and it was really getting to me because I was working on 2 projects really hard all week. Putting a lot of time into it because I cared. And one of them nailed it. Client loved it. Yeah. The other one, I just wasn't getting it right. And the feedback was, I don't disagree with any of the feedback. I agree. And I'm just man, really beating myself up for just not nailing it. And I definitely had that expectation. And I'm it took me a while to navigate through that a little bit. But I don't want to steal your monster. So
no, I think that's
my monster might be.
I mean, obviously, I brought
Nosferatu because I thought that movie was amazing, and you guys might disagree with me because I know a lot of people don't think it was good. Loved it. Saw it twice in the theater.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard what you're saying. People are hating on it.
My favorite vampire to date.
Nice.
The execution of it.
Let's go.
I think they nailed it.
Dope.
He nailed it. Yeah.
Dope.
2 monsters. So I have one from a movie, which is legit monstrous, and I have one that's a theoretical monster in the way that Adrian's is a theoretical monster. Yep. So the first one is The Mouth of Sauron. I've been listening to the audiobooks of Lord of the Rings, read by Andy Serkis, which are lovely. There's a lot of singing.
Them by him? That's so awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's good. I did not realize there was so much singing, by the way, in Lord of the Rings. Because you glaze over it when you're reading it. You're like, oh, it's poetry. That's great, lovely. But they literally sing it in this, and you're like, oh, my God, it's like Lord of the Rings, the musical. So,
I love it.
But The Mouth of Sauron is this terrifying creature of sorts. That's the movie I think did a better job of the book in this regard of visualizing.
Said no one ever except you.
Except it really is though this
I'm joking.
This terrifying helmet where it's just a cracked mouth and it is horrific looking and it is the spreader of lies and it's there's this beautiful metaphor in that. So that is a wonderful monster in that it's not just disturbing to look at, and it's weird, robotic, kind of twitchy movements, which just give me the heebie-jeebies, but also the spreader of lies kind of idea. The other monster, the theoretical monster, is similar a little bit, is the inner voice, unsatisfied moment. And I think it touches upon what you're both saying. I have it all the time. And I have to be deliberate of when to ignore it and remind myself this. So working on just visual explorations and having to say out loud multiple times, there's no wrong answers here. And I'm constantly, well, I don't think I'd like that color. And how might somebody interpret? There are no wrong answers here, Jon. There are only explorations, and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to get built.
Hell yeah.
It doesn't need to pass accessibility. Yeah. It's just a visual exploration. You can make pretty today. Give yourself this is your golden ticket to make pretty this week. Just make pretty. Enjoy yourself. Pretend like you work at all these other beautiful brands and you just want to make pretty. Do that. Enjoy yourself. I had to remind myself that I allowed and actually should be encouraged to do that. The other thing I do is like when I'm running, if it's like not fast enough, not long enough. By the way, never fast enough, never long enough. I'll run a 12-mile run and be like, not 13-1 today. Yeah, exactly. Do my normal route. Not well. What's your weekly going to be like? It's like enough. You don't get paid for this. You're a father, a full-time employee. You're getting out 3 times a week to run. That's enough, dude. Like, and you should judge yourself on how many smiles and not how many miles. Honestly, you should be like, how much do I enjoy the experience of running, and versus how much I enjoy the experience of suffering. Which, by the way, is okay.
Yeah.
There is a moment in running where I do enjoy the suffer moment, but I don't want all the time.
Embrace the
Everything doesn't need to be the day at the coal mine. Like some of it should be like, I enjoy the sunset. I enjoy the green hills. That's totally okay. In fact, that should be the majority. That's kind of how I feel when I buy Rourke stuff, honestly.
Literally just going to say that's their brand.
And that's what resonates with me. Yeah. So that monster, whatever we want to call it, this monster of it's never good enough. Maybe it's the GOAT monster, truthfully. That every sports athlete, every designer, every writer, everybody's going to be the GOAT or they're nothing.
Or the unicorn or the this or the that.
Yeah, it's I got to be
the rock star, design ninja.
I got to be a billionaire by the age of 30. Oh, not 25, not 20. It's like, what, not before I was born? Like, where's the extremes here where so-and-so can just be like, hey, by the way, you were a professional athlete. Even if I've never heard of you, you've achieved a thing that I've never achieved. Yeah. You should be respected for that. You know, like, we forget about these things of like, what you're doing, if you give your heart to it and you do it, that's all that you should be. That's actually the thing we should be lifting up on the pedal. You're a GOAT because you gave your heart to something. Totally. Whether your numbers or notoriety or any of that comes to it, I think that's just false things. Like, we don't know what to do with that. It's okay to just be you moment. Like, we've lost something special.
There's a time and a place
to become pervasive.
Yeah, there's a time and a place to like, okay, it's numbers time. But if it's always that, then where's the soul? Where's the humanity?
When is it though? Like, but truthfully,
no. I'm speaking more of like in our work. You know, not just art, but the rationale, the goal, the strategy behind what you're working on. But there's a time and a place, and we lose sight of that there is an art to the communication. It's not just communication, and so we need to figure out how to retain that. If there's anything, that's sort of the theme of our sort of post-episode AI talk.
I think what seems to be coming back to me all the time is when I see these things, it's like, so I, long time ago, worked at an agency and we had worked on Apple, and I worked specifically on Apple. And at the time, it was like, wow, that's really great. Obviously, if I look back and be like, that's not great, it's totally antiquated at this point.
Yeah.
Everything will feel that way, though. Yes. Everything will feel that way. So this yearning to be GOAT is false. It's a false god.
It's fleeting.
It's a false god you're worshiping because it is such a temporary moment.
It's the golden calf. That's what it is.
It's the golden goat.
The golden goat. That's the golden
There's
goat.
the monster name. We're going to do that one at some point for sure. That's great.
The golden goat.
I like that.
That's so
it's
good.
such a dumb term,
good.
though. It's such a dumb
All the terms are
term.
Greatest of all time. Come on, that's dope.
It's a dumb term. There's no such thing as the greatest of all time in anything.
Well, there's I think what happens is like
Name
slang
one that
words are
can't
fun.
easily be debated.
Well, I think it's more.
Then you're going into opinion that you can never do that. Like,
Then it doesn't deserve.
I know.
We have
Like
our
the
own
whole
goats.
like Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Michael Jordan obviously has a better career, but LeBron James has the longevity. Then you have Tom Brady. You know, they were just doing like. But then what about Joe Montana? And like, well, so and so did this, and so and so. Well, then you have Bill Russell. If we're going to talk about titles, Bill Russell.
How many angels can dance on the head of a pin?
It
seems like a dumb question.
Yeah.
They all seem like dumb questions to me. Of like, who's the greatest of all time? It's like, what does unicorn taste like? I mean, it's the same dumb question.
It's those interview questions of like, how many windows are in New York City? It's like, I don't really give a shit, dude. Like,
I don't know. Enough.
That's a great answer. Enough.
One thing I wanted to say when you're talking about kind of going back to the expectations and how you're seeing it is like the go and, expecting that of yourself. And it's okay to remind yourself it's okay. There's one thing that Laura, who was on our overtime episode, brought up, because she's very good at she's the kind of person that will help you get in touch with yourself and ground yourself. And that's she loves being in the outdoors, and she's all about that. Highly creative person. And I might be butchering this a little bit, but from what I remember and what I can understand, she talked about how when Native Americans, I don't know if it was a specific tribe or something, but weaving baskets, they would weave in, I think what it was called is a spirit line or something, and intentionally different to basically make sure that within that precision, there was a sense of humanity. That might be a little bit wrong, but it doesn't matter.
That's interesting.
Because that stuck with me. And I'm sure a lot of us in this field, there's a little bit of that obsessive compulsive that we hang on to. And that in some ways makes us good at our craft because we want things to, line up and be organized. But that can really get in the way and eat at us. And it eats at me all the time. But honestly, ever since that episode, and it's gotten better and better, I let things go. And I literally just say spirit line. And I let go of it. And I'm like, this isn't perfect. Spirit line. It's just, you know what? Move on. And it's so awesome. It's like a life hack,
I like that.
So cool.
It's similar, but not the same. I'm probably going to butcher this too, but it's a type of pottery technique. I think it's Japanese, where they incorporate gold into the broken part.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is it's taking the imperfection and magnifying it.
Yeah.
Because what's important was the human part. The imperfection was the point. And the perspective is fascinating to me of we call it something different.
Yeah.
You know what we call it. We call it the happy accident, don't we? Yep. The thing that neither of us wanted to happen, but it happened. You don't know how it happened. And you're like, exactly. Yeah. You're like, look at that. I just made this beautiful thing accidentally because I let myself free. Yeah. And sometimes kismet happens and sometimes it shows up, right? And that is, so to get back to the topic of this podcast, is that to me is authenticity.
Yep.
Is when your imperfections become the center point and you don't hide them.
Full
you
circle.
Magnify them. Yeah.
I think that's the episode. That was the perfect.
You said that 3 times.
Round it out. No, but now it is. I'm blessing it.
Editing.
It's.
There will be.
For now. Dun, dun, dun. Well, this is awesome, Jon. I'm stoked that you're our now third co-host. So if you're listening, watching, this is what it's going to be. Every now and then we'll have a guest on. We're doing that partially because we love hanging out with our friend Jon, and we do this anyways for fun and have awesome conversations. We were like, this should just be our show. And then we have a guest on every now and then when we can. And that way we can have more episodes. I think that's the point, is we've been doing this maybe 10 times a year. And if that sometimes, because it's hard to find time where we can all do it in a schedule with a guest. And we're like, well, we've been able to kind of make some things happen. So let's try to do one maybe every week, every other week. whatever works out, but definitely get into a rhythm because there's so many awesome monsters that we can talk about and, do some more illustrations and have those comic covers and just have fun, I think, unpacking this stuff and creating a space for us in the industry to just open up, kind of get messy, like you said, talk about this stuff, be real about it, relevant, even though I feel like I don't like that word anymore. But yeah, I definitely have heard from a lot of friends and colleagues that they really like this show. And I'm like, man, I feel bad that we can't do more of it because I know they really like it. And it's a place for them to really kind of, like you said, see themselves in these conversations. And I love the feedback that I get. So stoked to do this more. And
send us topics.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyone who's listening, send us topics.
Yes, please. What are your monsters? Yeah.
Send us questions. We'll do a listener listener mailbox.
That's a great idea.
Read your question online if you want.
We talked about that a little bit. Yes.
Yep.
And there's been some debate on some of our stuff on YouTube. So I think that's something we could do too. We'll do that, but also like, what are the debates happening in the comments? Because we don't get a ton of comments yet. We're not like the GOAT or anything, but we do.
Design is a community sport. Yeah. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
And it can't just be three people talking towards people. Totally. Like community.
Yep.
You are part of this conversation too.
Heck yeah. Yes, 100%.
All right, gentlemen. Until next time.
Bid you adieu.